Okay, guys. Dark one for you. If Captain America's shield is made of vibranium, what is Hawkeye's shield?
I
Um,
don't. I don't
I
know
don't.
what.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Quicksilver.
Oh,
Yikes. Ooh, yeah,
bad,
that is kind of dark.
That's a little
bad,
dark.
Kevin.
It's a little dark.
Man, it's too.
It's
It's
Ah,
funny
too
as hell
early
though.
for that.
rip, rip,
It's a
Pietro.
Saturday morning. It's my day off, and you're putting snuff out in front of me. Damn.
Mm.
Oh man. Well, with that hilariously dark start, welcome back to the Real Heroes podcast channel, everyone. Got Corey, Nick, and Kevin here, and today we are going to be breaking down episode 2 of the new series WandaVision, streaming exclusively on Disney Plus. Um, there will be spoilers. Big time spoiler warning coming right at you here. So if you have not seen episodes 1 or 2 of WandaVision, I would suggest going back and checking both of those out. Then coming back to the channel, watching our last video where we did a deep dive into episode 1, and then come back and check this one out for all the goodness that is in episode 2. So, boys, just like the last video, Nick, I'm going to start with you this time, and spare Kevin the old age joke. Um, what did you think of this episode?
It was good. I think uh, the different tone of more the magician-y aspect was clever. Uh, magicians, is it magic? Obviously, sure. Can she do magic? Yes. Are her powers magical? Yes. So I think everything that's sort of related within that sphere is um, just great writing.
Yeah.
Again, I think they're just following the tone of what and who WandaVision or what Wanda is, but
Right.
um, the interesting vision aspects, I guess, which we'll get to, with him being affected by a piece of gum and how that can just derail a machine, if you will.
Yep.
It's great. It's there's a lot of good stuff in this episode, so I think they did a really good job with a follow up to the first episode.
Nice. Kevin, how about you? Your thoughts?
Same. I was struck by obviously the different intro, which is a great
Yeah.
throwback to Bewitched. The
Yep.
animation,
Yep.
Vision looked just like Darren in that intro. Like it was great.
Yep.
And then they took it so far as to change the set. So the set is different. The house is different. Like there's a lot of differences here to let you know that it's it's kind of the same, but it's also you know not probably what you think it is.
Right.
And then the
Yep.
the parallels between later on in the episode when you get his, well, I guess not later on, right at the beginning, when you get his magician name of being illusion. um
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like, well,
A clue,
again, maybe
Sherlock.
Yeah.
exactly, maybe a little on the nose there, but also super, interesting to think that everything that you're seeing is likely an illusion of
Yep.
some sort.
Yep.
One thing
Again,
that,
telegraphing.
yeah, exactly. One thing that did strike me though, is that, and it, just actually here in the last couple of minutes occurred to me, um, before we got into this, I thought that all of this was going to be happening in Wanda's head. But this is not told from Wanda's point of view. We actually see Vision on his own doing things away from her
Yep.
sometimes too. So now I'm not so sure, if it's just her, maybe as in a dream she is an observer. That's a possibility, or maybe there's something a little bit more mysterious going on. I don't know.
Hmm. Interesting. That's a good point. I didn't think about that with them being, you know, really, apart for a good chunk of the episode. That is
Yeah.
something to look at. So,
Yeah.
um, for me, again, echo your sentiments. I enjoyed the episode quite a bit. From a production standpoint, like you said, the set's different, the house is different, wardrobe, all that stuff. But the photography is also vastly different. You go from
Yeah,
that Dick Van Dyke style, very obviously like a really static type shot where the camera is mounted at that fourth wall of the living room or the fourth wall of the kitchen or the office or whatever. With this one, there's a lot more dynamic photography, so the camera follows the characters around. They
yeah,
use lenses that blur out the backgrounds a little bit. They do a lot more focus pulling when there's one scene where Wanda's outside, she's looking at the helicopter, and
yeah,
it's on her face. She turns her head, the focus pulls onto the window of the house, and then when she turns her head back, the focus pulls back on her face. So it's kind of like showing the evolution of the cinematography as the years went by
Mhm.
too, which I thought was really cool. It's really neat to see how much attention to detail they put into making those delineations very clear
Yeah.
as we
yeah.
move through the American decades. Um, so let's just
There's
let's just
layers.
there are layers, and they're gonna peel, and I think it's gonna be great. So let's get into some of this just wild shit that happens in this episode. We get a cute little previously on, which is kind of like a TV show thing. You get a little recap of episode one, and then Wanda and Vision are in bed. Their beds are separate, which is kind of hilarious. Um,
I Love Lucy.
yeah, very.
Yeah,
It's almost kind of like that's your transition point between the last episode and this one, because by the end of that scene, their beds are together, and it goes from being like
Mhm.
two twins to a king or a queen. But there's a bang at the window. Uh, Vision checks it out. It's hilarious because he's spooked by it, and he's like
yeah.
a murder bot, and a tree
You've got powers, bud.
and a tree hitting a window scares him for some strange reason. But Wanda uses her powers to turn the lights on and off. She asks him if he's using his night vision. Are you using your night vision? And
Yeah.
just like hilarious little lines. It's so
Oh
good.
man.
And then she says, "I'm gonna take a look at this," and she's all brave, but then all she does is use her powers to move the curtains aside,
Yeah.
and you can
Yep.
see that it's just a tree hitting the window. So um, really funny stuff in there. And then, to pick up on a thread from the last video, this is a horny show.
Yeah.
The once the beds are together, Vision's like, "Wanda, get the lights, baby. Let's do this."
Yep.
And they dive under the covers.
Yep.
And it gets a little more risque because you're now moving from late 50s, early 60s to what feels like the late 60s at this point, more like a Bewitched
Yeah.
style
Yep.
show. So and that's your cold open. That's again, Marvel show, no action, hilarious
Mhm.
comedy. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, does that make it even more readily obvious to you guys that Kevin Feige is saying be prepared for anything in Phase 4?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think this is intentionally meant to shake things up a little bit
Yeah.
because you fall into, um, you know, I don't want to say like a rut or whatever, but when you're doing, 10, 12, whatever movies in a row, um, that all have kind of the same feel and kind of have to because they're all leading into a similar direction. And then that after this, shit's getting wacky. When they say, be prepared for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness because it's probably going to be more along the lines of maybe even a horror film, very suspenseful at least.
Yeah.
How do you bridge that gap and go from something that has been so accessible to everybody to that,
Right.
and at the same time start to bring in some topics and characters and go to some places that are weird. Like we are going to go to some weird fucking places in the MCU in the
Yeah.
next phase, and so this is, I think, his way of getting in there, shaking things up, and saying, "All right, forget what you know,
Mhm.
forget your past. This is your future. You like how I
Yeah,
did that?
I do,
Call
from the
back.
Yep.
toaster ad.
So so anyway, it's done extremely well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it breaks the mold, and I kind of viewed this show in this direction. If you guys remember when Scorsese was sort of poking fun at Marvel, and then it's just like people tire out from them. It's just all action. Like it should never
Mhm.
be. It'll never be more than that. It's like, it'll never get nominated for best actor or whatever, right? I mean, even though sure RDJ had a great performance as Iron Man over the
Mhm.
course of his entire sort of career doing Iron Man. But this show shows that the writing can go in a different direction. Like I said, it breaks the mold. It's something different. It's like, hey, we can do stuff that's just not all actiony.
Yeah.
We can do other things, which is consisting of great writing, great storytelling overall. So I think phase 4 is going to be a lot different than the first three phases, and rightfully so because of what transpired over those three phases. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, again, like they're gonna do interesting things, like you were saying, Kevin. So it's gonna be good for us as fans and viewers.
I think it's going to be good for comic book fans too.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah, because they're pulling a
yes.
lot from comic books, especially.
Finally,
Yeah, no, and it's great. I mean, I think comic book fans, deserve some some more attention to detail, and
yeah.
there are pains from the comic books that look exactly how they are on set
Oh yeah.
in this episode, which is, I was sort of taken aback by it. I'm like, oh damn, like they're kind of going in on detail here. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And historically, the comics have been fucking weird.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, because there's just a lot you can do in comics.
right.
So it's
The stuff you've seen in the Marvel movies really kind of only scratches the surface as to how just
yeah,
completely out there some of these comic runs can get. I mean, I think in the last
yeah,
video, Nick, you mentioned the Vision run where he's in suburbia and it's a family of androids.
yeah.
It gets really weird and like they
It
all look the
does.
same. All of their names start with the letter V. Like
Yeah,
like
very creepy, very
yeah,
Twilight Zoney.
let it get
Yeah.
weird. And I think we're Marvel has built up enough goodwill with its
Yes.
audience that the fans are going to be along for the ride pretty much
Yep.
no matter what at this point. So
Yep.
so let's get into this this opening credit sequence. So we have a Bewitched style intro, but instead it's Wanda and Vision flying through the city. There are multiple Easter eggs in this intro, and I'm going to list them now, and then we can discuss them. So at one point, when Vision is getting ready for the day, he phases through from the bedroom to the bathroom, and then down from the second floor to the first floor. In between floors, the Grim Reaper's headpiece is right there. It's very interesting. When they break apart and Vision goes to work and Wanda goes to the grocery store, there are multiple brands of food and grocery store style products that you'd see there. There is a Wonder Oats cereal, which is a direct reference to Wonder Man,
Hmm.
which is essentially considered like Vision's brother, right? I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there is a reference to Auntie A's kitty litter, which is a reference to Agatha Harkness. And then the weirdest one, which is the Bova brand milk, which is milk that comes from a cow that is genetically engineered by the High Evolutionary, which is a very, very deep comic book reference.
Yeah,
And
it
ironically
is.
enough, the High Evolutionary, his like human name and his relatable name is Herbert, or Herb for short, and one of the characters in WandaVision just happens to be named Herb, which makes you wonder how many of these characters in this show are more than what meets the eye. And then
Yeah.
lastly, one of the lamps in their house also has wings on the side of the head and like a little W shape on the front. It basically makes out the outline of the Wizard, which is a lesser known Marvel character that's kind of like their equivalent to the Flash, except he gets his powers from a transfusion of mongoose blood, which is completely bananas and ape shit in all ways. So,
Weird.
boys, that's like a 30-second animated intro, and it drops a lot of hints as to what could be in this show.
A lot of stuff will be missed, I'm
Discuss.
sure, by people.
Oh yeah.
You know, which is one of the reasons why we do this and why you should watch our videos, because you will pick up on things like this and go, "Oh, I need to watch it again." Yes, you do.
Oh,
You do, because it deserves being
Subscribe.
watched. Right? Yeah. So clever. I mean, at first I was like, "Oh my god, this is like Bewitched," and then I started seeing things within animations. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." You know, so
yeah.
it's great. I do think again that this could be outside of just Wanda's head, and that this could be, man, I'll say this for the prediction, but I don't think we're just in Wanda's head.
Yeah.
Where
I don't think so either.
there's something else big going on, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just for the opening sequence sake, great, so well done, loved it.
Yeah.
So many deep cuts here, and Easter eggs, like you said. It almost feels like Feige is going after this in the same way that Favreau and Filoni went after Star Wars.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, it's got that same feeling to it with which is like, oh, well, the real fans, the ones that have been there for years, they're gonna love this shit, and
yeah,
everybody else may miss it, but it doesn't matter because it's not, you know, it's either not super important to the story and it's just there for nostalgia's sake, or we're gonna explain it later. So if you already know, you know. That's great. If you don't already know, stay tuned and you will.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where they walk that fine line, like you said, between where the references are there and they're great. But if you aren't a hardcore comic book person and you don't get them, it's okay. It's not going to ruin the plot of the
Exactly.
story for you. You're not
right,
going to miss anything. It's just
right.
there. It's a cool little reward for, you know, getting stuffed in a locker when you were in middle school, and we move on. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep,
so we start this episode. Wanda and Vision are preparing a magic act, as Nick mentioned before, for the uh, town talent show fundraiser, which is, say it with me, guys, for the children,
For the
for
children.
the children,
which
for
is
the
a
children.
really creepy
She
undertone
says
that
it all late.
we hear a lot in this episode,
Yeah.
which and
Yeah,
there's a reason why, and we'll definitely get to that. But as they're practicing their magic act, there's a little knock outside their door again, and Wanda goes outside to investigate. And there's a little miniature helicopter that is out in the bushes, and you know we saw the use of selective color, very limited in the last episode. It was just the red light on the toaster in the Stark commercial, but this helicopter is red and yellow,
yep,
and everything else is black and white. It's very interesting. It's also a very small helicopter. Wanda's able to pick it up with her hands and examine it.
right.
And there's a sword logo on it. So what the shit is going on, guys? Where did this helicopter come from, and who was on it, and what does it all mean, Basil?
And why is it painted Iron Man colors?
Yeah,
Mm,
I was like, "What? That's an interesting color combination." And uh, yeah, I don't know if it was intentionally much larger and somehow quantumly resized. Again, that there's so much that could be behind the meaning of it falling there.
Mhm.
And again, we it's is she imagining it? Is it was it dropped there by a sword to see if it triggers some sort of um, you know, I don't know, like new frequency within this realm that
right.
we're viewing. Like there's so much that it could be. it's still cool nonetheless to sort of see a couple interesting um, little Easter eggs there.
Was it accidentally landed there
Mhm.
by Ant-Man?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Well,
I
there
mean,
there is an
it could be
Ant-Man
any number of
connection
things.
to the show. One of the cast members that was announced is uh, Randall Park, who plays Jimmy Woo, who
Right.
was the agent that oversaw Scott Lang's house arrest. So quantum stuff, Ant-Man stuff is not off the table. And,
Yeah.
why else would a very elaborate looking helicopter all of a sudden become miniaturized and land in their front yard? Who knows? So
Yep.
more mystery, which is
Yeah.
great. But then,
I think it's pretty safe to say nothing is off the
Yeah,
table.
that's true.
yes, in Feige we trust, and then we move forward. So Wanda is very suspicious about this helicopter, but she doesn't have enough time to be suspicious about it because Agnes, who's the MVP, shows up and says, "Hey, there's the star of the show," to Wanda, which is extremely meta. It turns out that
Yep.
just because Agnes has a pet rabbit that she's loaning out to the Visions for their magic show, which of course she does. Why wouldn't she? And then,
Which
yeah, right. The name of the rabbit is Senior Scratchy, which is a hilarious name that I don't know if it has any meaning, but it made me laugh. And then the mailman walks by, and Agnes kind of does like a double guns thing at him, and he's like, "No, don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger." And like
Yeah.
maybe I'm reading too far into everything, but it seems like literally every single scene with Agnes has some form of like secondary or tertiary meaning behind it, and
Hmm.
not all is as it seems. Like maybe Agnes is kind of pulling the strings and the mailman's like, "No, seriously, don't hurt me," even though it just looks like a joke. I don't know what
Yeah.
you guys think about that, but there's a lot about that character that makes me go, something's not right with her.
Yeah.
I get the feeling, and I'll explain this a little bit more later why, but I get the feeling that Agnes is kind of the babysitter in this scenario, and that she doesn't really relish that role. That's the feeling I get after 2 episodes. It's like, all right, I've been sent here to keep an eye on this shit, and like I have better uses of my time and my powers. Why the hell, So I'm if as long as I'm here, I might as well have some fun. That's the impression that I get from her.
There could be this interesting thing happening where Mephisto has somehow done something, tampered with something, so that this is why Sword is here, and who knows what's going on in reality, where they're sort of observing what's happening within Wanda, trying to rescue her, maybe. But yeah, like you were saying, maybe Agnes, or possibly Agatha, is sent there as a babysitter from Mephisto. Like, hey,
Hmm.
watch her, maintain her, make sure she doesn't go too haywire. While
Make sure
I
she makes babies,
Yeah,
because I
well,
want the
while I
souls
just
of
rip
those
the
babies.
universe. Yeah, so there's so much that could be going on at play here that we just don't know yet.
Yeah,
But it's it's
there's a
it's
lot of
it's
material to pull from.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of strings dangling, and we don't know which ones they're gonna pull at,
She
which
does like the
is
double take, like she's like
Yeah, it's
as
just
he's
checking him
walking up,
out.
checking him out. It's like, all right,
yep. So the two of them, they go to meet Dottie, who Dottie is the wife of Phil Jones, who was the guy that Vision replaced that got fired at the computational service company in the first episode, which is pretty funny, which might explain why Dottie is a little bit sour towards Wanda. Um,
yep,
the funny little tidbit: the actor who plays Dottie was a witch on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Um, don't know if that means anything or not, but it kind of seems like she's somewhat in on the
it's
game.
it
Because
fits the mold and the theme.
there's that one scene where Wanda's doing cleanup for her, and Dottie's like, "I've heard things about you and your husband," and Wanda's like, "Well, I assure you, we're not doing anything wrong. We don't mean anybody any harm." And she says, "I don't
Right.
believe you,"
Yeah.
which makes me think there's something afoot with that character. But
Yeah,
Aha.
Yes. So,
Ah,
um, so we go to I guess it's kind of like a community center or country club or something, and it's very 60s. All the ladies are part of a planning committee, and all the gents are off having their neighborhood watch meeting, and they're putting together all the details for the talent show, which is again for the children.
For
Um,
the children.
for the
and we
children.
get what I think is the most important line of the entire series so far, where one of the characters says, "The devil is in the details." And then Agnes says, "That's not the only place he is."
Ah, man.
Mephisto
Ooh.
confirmed or what, guys? Is that.
Mephisto. Dude, they're like, it's like pin in the tail on a donkey. They're just getting so damn close with every sort of, you know, reference that
Yeah.
could fit him.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, if he's not in this at the end, I'm like, come on, what? What, really?
Yeah.
You do all that teasing and you don't throw him
And
in
you
there?
don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff. We also get the introduction to Tiana Paris's character. She introduces herself as Geraldine. For anybody who has paid attention to any of the press or promotional materials, we know that that is not actually her name. It does sound like she kind of makes that up on the spot,
Yep.
because that's Monica Rambeau, who we last
Yep.
saw as Lieutenant Trouble over in Captain Marvel as like a 6-year-old kid. Uh,
Yeah.
Guys, she doesn't know. She even says, "I don't know what I'm doing here."
Yeah.
So where did she come from? What is she doing? And why is she there?
Who's your daddy and what does he
What?
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one for me is like a true mystery at this point. I honestly, I have no idea. I mean, there's can be some speculation. Maybe she grew up and now she works for Sword. Maybe this, that, or the other. But at this point, it's a true just like, let's take this character you heard of once and just plop her right in the middle. Um, but as far as I could tell from the show, there weren't a lot of hints as to why she was there or how she got there.
Yeah, I think either this was again we're trying to figure out is this whole thing induced by Sword or Mephisto or and if so is Monica Rambeau part of Sword, most likely. If so, did they put her into this sort of realm that what the Wanda is in, and is she just trying to play dumb just to sort of see what Wanda will recognize or put together? Because obviously you can tell right away she just makes up Geraldine on the spot because she doesn't want to reveal her actual identity. But then sort of plays stupid, like, I don't know why I'm here, like like same thing as you, sort of
Yeah.
scope, but it's not answering anything for us. It's just building more questions, which is fine because again it makes the show more interesting. It leaves us talking about it, which is great, and that's what shows should do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the slow burn, which is
Yeah.
what TV is all about. Let
Yep.
let the story stretch and let it breathe and let it play out the way it's supposed to, and it'll work.
Yep.
We hear the for the children thing happen a whole bunch during these meetings, but did you guys notice that there are no kids visible literally anywhere during all
Yeah.
of
There
this?
hasn't been one.
Yeah.
So they talk about the children a lot, but they don't seem to exist, which I kind of feel like that's building onto the mystery. Because if you watch the trailers for the
Yeah.
show, there are children later on, but as of right now, there are none. So
Right.
Yeah.
pretty interesting stuff there. Um, we cut over to the neighborhood watch, and the neighborhood watch is just like boys club. But we need to get away from our wives and get our sanity back. 60s trope, and all they're doing is just like spit and gossip about other people. Johnson's treehouse is a prefab job and he can't swing a hammer to save his life, and Arthur bought all of his bowling trophies from a yard sale in Hackensack, which New Jersey reference. It kind of places where they are, which is interesting. In episode
Hmm.
1, there's actually a for sale sign on a house, and the phone number to call for the real estate company is a 732 area code, which is ironically enough my hometown in Edison, New Jersey, which completely fucking blew my mind. And then they said Hackensack in this episode, and I was like, holy shit, Wanda's fucked up reality is where I grew up. Makes perfect sense. But
Oh,
you know,
man.
that scene's fun. Vision comes in there at first and he's all serious and he's trying to like see what's going on with
Fit in.
burglary and all this other nonsense. But by the end of it, they're cracking jokes, they're laughing together. He tries a stick of gum, which is really weird because in the first episode he says, I don't eat food ever.
Yep.
And of course it's Big Red, which is, why would it be any other brand of gum other than Big Red? And it fucks him up, and we get these cute little animations of the inner workings of the Vision and how
like a machine, and
how gum
It's like
gets
how
to
they
him.
tried to explain human reproduction in the early 60s.
Right, in like health class or whatever, right?
yeah, it's interesting because again, he I the way he's made is much more complex, right? That we
Oh yeah.
know. I mean, we know how Bruce Banner and Tony Stark made him along with the Tesseract. So it's like, you know, he's not just a couple cogs and you know, spinning internally, but something so simple as a stick of gum, which hilarious when he first puts it in his mouth and he's trying to chew it. Is like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That's perfect. God, Paul Bettany.
But
They're like,
it's almost like that gum was like it wasn't really gum, right? It was like maybe a Trojan horse or
Oh
something
yeah,
to get him to become almost one of those mindless dudes at the table,
yep.
who were, you know, not concerned with anything except what's right in front of their face all the time.
right. It's kind of funny how he cracks a couple jokes because one guy says he doesn't eat, and then he calls one guy a communist.
Mhm.
You know, they're like, oh, we didn't think you were this funny, you know, and
They
it's like,
say, Vision, we thought you were really square, and he's like, oh no, I'm very
yeah,
round.
I'm as round as they
yeah.
come.
Oh man,
Oh, dude, I had no idea he was that funny, and he
yeah,
had that in him. It's terrific. So, yeah. So, we get one more scene before we break to commercial, which is the one where Dottie suspects Wanda of things, and the music gets very sinister. However, again, just like with the helicopter earlier in the episode, the tension is broken by something else. This time it's the radio at the table, and the radio is calling out to Wanda, asking who is doing this to her.
yeah,
And Wanda seems confused by it. Dottie seems confused by it. It gets to the point where Dottie squeezes her hand so tightly that the glass that she's holding breaks and
yeah,
she starts bleeding. And the blood is, of course, red in a
Right.
black and white TV show. So another use of selective color, again with the color red. There seems to be a little bit of a trend going on here. And then
mm-hmm.
she asks Wanda how a housewife gets a blood stain out of white linen, and she says she does it herself. And it almost kind
Yeah,
of seems like Dottie's being abused. Like she's used to getting blood out of her white clothes. So it got real dark there for a few seconds, guys, and I'm curious as to what you think about it.
Yeah, agreed. It also felt like maybe it was uh, her giving her a like Dottie giving Wanda a signal of don't wait on anybody else to save you.
yeah,
You're going to have to do this shit yourself.
yeah,
You know, so, you know, maybe Wanda is the blood stain in this white linen
yeah,
world that she's living in. And how do you get yourself out of that?
yeah. No, I agree. I was gonna say I think it's gonna be up to Wanda to pull herself out of whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where the voice through the radio, um, even metaphorically speaking, any sort of voice calling out to her from any realm, uh, is just going to be like a catalyst, and it's still going to be up to her to figure out how to break out of that, how to escape, and you
Yeah.
know, it's still. Uh, I wonder how many more times we're going to see something like that happen.
Yeah.
over the next seven episodes.
But after that voice came on the radio, it gave me the feeling that there's like maybe three different things going on here. Like you might just find Wanda like spasming out in some fucking room somewhere
Yeah.
because she's being, kind of possessed or whatever by Mephisto.
Right.
One of the Avengers or somebody that we already know from the MCU is there trying to rouse her, saying, "Who's doing this to you?" Or maybe she's in a hospital somewhere, or something like that. Somebody's trying to rouse her. "Who's doing this to you? Who's doing this to you?" And then all the while, we've got um, Sword keeping an eye on what's going on, making notes because maybe they just don't feel like it's time to intervene just yet, or maybe they feel like Wanda's still too dangerous to jump in. But
Right.
again, with the layers, right? There's just so much that's happening right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a black and white 4x3 sitcom.
Yeah.
That's the best part. It's such a trip. But so it's time for a commercial break, and we get some more Easter eggs. It's an ad for a watch that's made by Strucker. Obviously, Strucker is the scientist at the beginning of Age of Ultron that gave Quicksilver and Wanda their powers. It says the tagline for the company is "He'll make time for you." It's very interesting, given what happens at the end of the episode, which we'll get to soon. The water resistance is Hydra 1,000 meters, and it has the Hydra logo on it, which is wonderful.
So good.
And just like the toaster in the previous episode, the ticking of the watch continually gets faster and faster, like they're running out of time.
Yeah.
Man, there's I'll save it. I'll save it to the end.
There's a lot to unpack, man. These commercials is my favorite part.
Yeah.
That was like a theme in Infinity War, right? Which was like they didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
They had never had enough time together. They had to steal these moments and all that kind of stuff, you know. So if this is her head concocting these commercials in order to kind of jar her out of whatever she's in, makes total sense.
Yep.
Very astute reference, Kevin, because the last thing that Vision says to Wanda when they're at Wakanda, when Thanos shows up, is "We are out of time." And then she has to blow the Mind Stone out of his head to destroy it, and essentially kill the man that she's in love with. So this is all really dark, repressed PTSD stuff that's kind of manifesting in these commercials, which is, boy, it's fascinating. It's good stuff. I love it.
Do we think, by the way, that there's a possibility that Suri actually accomplished her task and was able to separate his consciousness from the stone, and maybe there was a copy of it or something like that somewhere?
Well, I was going to say this for the sort of prediction at the end, but kind of going back to the whole possibility of having multiple androids, multiple people in this, especially in this episode that we see, could also be androids. I think that they might bring back Vision, like Paul Bettany might be a recurring character again in the movies. So I don't think this is the last we'll see.
You don't think he's
Paul
done
Bettany.
here? Okay.
I don't. I think Vision will be brought back without the stone in his head, kind of like he is in the comics.
Yeah.
And like they allude to in the movie.
Right.
This could all actually be happening. Maybe Suri did 99.9% of her job and it wasn't 100% of the way there. And this is Vision's brain, as it were, trying to make sense of things and reconstruct his own reality, or you never know, maybe it's actually not Wanda at all.
Yo, that'd be some wild shit.
Right?
Yeah.
If that's the twist where it really unravels. But so back in TV land, they're at the talent show. Vision shows up late. He seems like he's kind of drunk from this big red gum.
Wasted.
His shirt is untucked. He says he's feeling weird. He's feeling weirdy. He puts a Y at the end of it for some goofy fucking reason I don't understand. But they have to go out and perform. and do their magic act as Glamour and Illusion are their stage names, and he introduces them backwards, and Wanda has to correct him. He goes out there
Yeah.
and he starts doing all these ridiculous, you know, superhuman feats. He starts levitating, and she has to use her magic to put up a pole with a string hanging from it to make it look like a cheap trick. He does a superhuman feat of strength, and he lifts an entire piano with one arm, and she has to use her magic to make it a flat piece of cardboard, and all of a sudden
That
turns
was
into a
my mother's
comedy act.
piano.
Yeah, and poor Jones, he gets fired in the last episode. He loses his mother's piano in this one. His
Yeah.
wife probably hates him because he got fired and he's a failure in life. At least he's
Yeah.
got a great mustache. But
Yeah.
you know, and the magic tricks go on. Vision can't do a card trick to save his life. You know, it's all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
They do the rabbit thing. It doesn't work out because the rabbit runs out from underneath the hat and runs away.
Yeah.
Vision phases his hat through his own body, and Wanda has to explain it away with mirrors that are hidden behind a curtain. And the one lady in the audience,
like, is that how mirrors work?
like, shh. So funny. And then, you know, the last trick is the Cabinet of Mysteries, which Vision, he says that wrong too. He mixes the words up again. But the Cabinet of Mysteries looks like it has Mind Stone on it that looks like it's exploding. It's a nice little reference to Infinity War.
Yeah.
Agnes makes another reference about if I wanted an audience volunteer, maybe you could make my husband Ralph disappear, which again, another reference to Ralph. It's just a total catastrophe, and Wanda and Vision don't think it goes very well. However,
Yeah.
They win the inaugural comedy award for this thing, and you know, in typical sitcom format, everything tends to work out. What was your take on all this stuff? Like, it's a lot, but
It is a lot, and
Yeah.
it's fantastic, and you know, the writing, the comedy aspect of it. Elizabeth Olsen, actually, I just didn't know she had it in her. Like, she's really
She's
killing this
shining
role.
in this
She's
role.
doing
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany, I kind of, you know, I've been a fan of his since A Knight's Tale back in the day, you know, and he was great in that, and kind of had this, you know, the dry comedy aspect there. But this is like, it's just such a good, wholesome, comedic little scene here. But that also is hinting, I think, at how Vision's mind isn't necessarily all there right now.
Yeah. I mean, the whole magic show was very well done. You know, a lot of laughs, a lot of goofiness involved. But you kind of just see the back and forth, and I think just that also really speaks highly on the chemistry between Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. You know, like
yes.
we kind of saw a glimpse of it in the movies. Not enough, because you know they were essentially background characters. They weren't the forefront of the original Avengers. You know, and you know now they get their spotlight, and boy, like they've through 2 episodes, it's like, man, they're gonna really shine through this entire series and the rest of the phases here in Marvel, as long as they're alive. um but I kind of, like you were saying, there's certain things to sort of take away too, with all the Easter eggs, like like Mr. Hart not being there. I kind of thought like he was just too important not to not be there, but I wonder if there's other meaning behind that. Like he's a businessman, owner or whatever. He's too good for that sort of thing. It's not good enough for his serious agenda.
It'd be funny if there was just
And
like a scene where he was talking to Mrs. Hart and was just like, I'm too important for that shit. Get out of here. Go have fun.
Yeah.
I have
yeah,
computational
exactly.
forms that I need to take care of.
Yeah, I've got money to make. Ha ha ha. Just like
Yeah.
I think the part where Wanda pulls out the gum inside of him, right? Like I was trying to think of metaphors that could be, again, what are they sort of trying to telegraph to us in this entire story, in this entire show? Is there one piece that's stuck and that she hasn't yet pulled out herself, but she's trying to, like, but she just hasn't actually figured it out yet, right? And I mean, like, I just don't know whose show it is. Like, it's I know it's WandaVision, but kind of like Kevin was saying, is this all coming from Vision, or is it all coming from Wanda? And what happens next? I think if I had to choose, I think it's probably Wanda. But again, it could be a combination of the two. We just don't know. Like, this is file WandaVision, like in Sword's mainframe computer, right? Like, we don't know.
Man, that would be interesting too.
Yeah,
if they just had like Vision on a USB stick and they were like, just plunk him in there, make her happy.
This was sent over by Shuri from Wakanda. We're gonna try, incorporating, the mind that was from Vision to see if it works well with Wanda, as she's strapped up in this special ambient room that is trying to nullify her powers.
It's almost like a form of sedation to try to just keep her from exploding the universe.
We've induced her into this modified sedation, right? Like, it's
I just had a thought,
man.
What if the voice of Wanda who is doing this to you is Professor Xavier?
That would be dope as all get out, because Wanda is a mutant. And I don't know. Well, I don't even want to think about that right now.
What a way to include mutants. Like, that's
he could just be, just
Cerebro, bro.
Dude.
Ooh, man.
Ooh, Cerebro.
Wanda, there are others just like
nerd chills.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Damn.
Nerd chills. You heard it here first.
I know. We predicted it first.
Wild theories. That's what we're here for. All right, so let's wrap this episode up. They win the comedy award. All is good. Again, typical sitcom format. They get back home. They sit down to watch TV. But Wanda says that they need to get, like, I think she says the children need some popcorn, because they're saying for the children. And when she stands up, she has a baby bump, literally out of nowhere. So all of this for the children, and talk about school admissions and why don't you guys have kids yet from the first episode. It is all manifested in Wanda's head and has led to her creating a pregnancy. And, she's like, Vision.
Glorians.
Yeah.
That House of M count. Hey, that's the crossover right there. So she asks Vision if this is all real. He says yes, but then there's a thud in the night again. And this time, instead of just going to the window, they go outside to investigate. And there is a beekeeper coming out of the sewer with a sword logo on the back of his beekeeper outfit. He kind of looks around. His neck snaps over towards Wanda, makes eye contact with her, and she says, in a very almost House of M style, no. And she rewinds real life back to the moment where she finds out she's pregnant, and then they live the future out in a different way, and they make the transition into Technicolor, which is going to bridge the gap into the next episode. And there is a lot to unpack there. Who's the beekeeper?
Yeah.
Why is he in the sewer? Is he trying to, like, break into that world? Who knows? How much control does Wanda have over this world? Because she can literally rewind time.
Yeah.
There's no time stone here. Reference? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found when I was kind of looking into this, and I guess it was a little bit obvious, but I didn't think about it, was AIM. you know, because their guys, their agents or whatever, often dressed in such a way that they looked like beekeepers.
Yeah.
And we've already seen AIM in Iron Man 3. They popped up there. And we just had the reference to Strucker, who was a, you know, pretty significant figure in AIM as well. So, but at the same time, we're seeing a bunch of this stuff kind of all mishmashed together, because you've got this person who looks like he could be from AIM, but with the sword logo on his back.
Right.
The reference to Strucker over here, and you know, we know that Sword's watching, like all this kind of weird shit, and it's like, again, it's like her head is getting all of these stimuli from all over the place, and she's just trying to kind of make sense of it. And it's like in a dream where sometimes that shit just kind of gets mushed together, and it doesn't really make sense.
Yep. Nick, what do you think? Who's the beekeeper? Is it anybody important? Is it Mephisto? He's coming from under the ground. I mean,
Yeah, I he's very shadowy. You can't. I tried
really
to
see his
pause it
face.
and can't, yeah, you can't see his face. So, you know, it seems like an infiltration sort of metaphor. The bees very very eerie, creepy-ish.
Yeah.
Um,
Why are
you
there
know,
bees in the sewer?
it's what I'm saying. I'm like, okay, this is a metaphor for something. So what? And again, again, like, it could be something with Mephisto. Again, wouldn't surprise me. I think if you're going to keep adding all these little things that lead up to him, then he has to appear at some point in some actual form. But like, but we absolutely know it's him.
Right.
Like, there's no like, maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's like, no, this is Mephisto. It is. But I think the fact that she rewinded time, like when she said no, I was like, oh,
Because it's just like the No More Mutants
she
line
can do that,
from
right?
House of
Yeah, it's
M.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like it was very like kind of, I'm the one in charge. It was like I kind of thought a little bit of Neo when he says no and he stops the bullets with, you know, in time.
Yeah.
Like someone of that
Mhm.
caliber who is, again, Neo's in the Matrix. Is Wanda in some sort of Matrixy like simulation as well?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that could be you drawn here for this world
Right.
that they're in, that we're watching. And I think that the fact that she just goes back to a happier moment too,
Yeah.
right? Like it got dark and she's
Mhm.
like, nope,
Nope.
not today, Satan,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, it feels
you
like
know,
she made a
like,
deal with somebody, and that somebody was coming to say, "Okay, Wanda, it's time. This is over now."
time's
And she
up.
was like, "No, not yet.
Nope. Yep.
I
I'm
need
gonna
more."
I'm gonna follow the timeline of what I wanted, and I wanted kids, so I made
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
Because the same
Yeah.
thing we discussed. How is an android and a human gonna make babies?
It just kind of happens.
Well,
But I think I'm pretty sure, and like I might have to correct myself post this, but in the comics, I think she just makes kids herself, right?
I
She
mean,
just
she can manifest pretty much anything, so
she just
why
just
not?
like, boom, twins. But I don't think they know that they have twins, or twins are on the way.
Yeah, I
not
think that'll be in the
yet.
next episode.
So yeah, should be next episode, because we obviously know in the trailer that we see two cribs,
There are two kids.
Yeah.
So
but they don't know that yet. So
yeah, so really fascinating, interesting way to end the episode and leave us on a week-long cliffhanger.
yeah,
Before we get to find out what happens next. I don't think anything about this show is setting up a happy ending for Wanda. I think that it's all pointing towards something catastrophic happening that leads to the multiverse of madness, which is
yep.
pretty awesome. So, so yeah, I think that'll wrap things up for this video, because we're running very long. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be doing this every single week for every new episode that premieres of this show. Really looking forward to seeing where the mystery takes us, and how it gets us to what will lead into Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2. So if you like the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so that way whenever we post a new one of these, you'll be able to hear about it first and dive into the nerddom with us. You can give us a follow over on social media. We're on Instagram at Real Heroes Podcast, Twitter, Real Heroes Pod. And as always, if you've got any questions for us, if you'd like to appear on a future episode of the show, drop us a line over at realheroespodcast@gmail.com. And then in the words of Vision, until the next video, flourish.